to Big D Energy. I have Lexi Montoya, owner of Creating Consciousness LLC, nervous system regulation coach, and energy healer. She is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for quite some time now. We've actually done a podcast in the past before. So welcome. I'm super excited to have you here and talk all things healthcare. Oof.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. I'm so excited.
So,
Thank you.
first off, introduce yourself a little. Tell everybody about what you do, what you're about. Give everybody a little taste of Lexi.
All right, my elevator pitch. I've been working on this, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, no, thank you. I mean, honestly, that introduction was everything. I like to try and keep it pretty high level because I feel like that helps everybody just kind of get like a brief kind of understanding, I guess. But reformed corporate professional. I right after college went into the health insurance side of things. Did a lot of work there. Ended up getting laid off because the company got smaller. They downsized. And then I found myself within workers' compensation insurance for 6.5 years or so. I was at that company. And while I was there, I had my, big awakening, as with a lot of people, especially right now. It was kind of like post-COVID time, I would say post-COVID time, but it was probably like right middle, like the thick of it. And kind of like woke up to a lot of the things that were going on around me, as we all did. And I was like, you know what? F this, I'm done. Like, I'm not working in corporate anymore. It just was I always say it was like a shock to my heart center, like just immediate feeling of like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I left that job, I left like 6 figures on the table and just said, no, I'm done. So basically, over the last 2 years, I've just kind of been rewriting my story and rewriting the way that I interact with myself and the world and like everybody around me, and just doing lots of soul searching, lots of learning about all sorts of different, themes and all sorts of things. And as I was doing that, I kept coming back to this desire to help other people that were in similar or the same situation that I was in, specifically with corporate, but everybody can benefit from nervous system regulation, as we both know. So that's been like my main mission. That's been my crusade. So, that's kind of what I do. It started off as learning Reiki, actually certified in 1 and 2 level Holy Fire Reiki. So I'm actually like a Reiki practitioner, but then through doing that and doing other work with other people, I kind of kept coming back to like the key message, and what I kept being guided to by my own team was, hey, we need to focus on like the very like root of the situation of what's going on for a lot of people, and everybody can do this themselves. We don't always need to go to a practitioner. We don't always need to go seek the help of like medical professionals. We have the ability to do this all on our own. So for me, a lot of what I do and a lot of what I focus on is trying to help people come back to that within themselves. So then that way they feel more empowered in their own ability to completely like write, their destiny and what they're going to be doing. So high level, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, like for those who are listening, like Lexi, I've had Lexi do energy work on me, and like remote Reiki, and it is wild. It is like the stuff that she sees and hears and knows and gathers for you is just like really, it's insane. So like if you're ever like wondering like what is it, what do you do, like go see Lexi. She's amazing at it, and that's my pitch for her. It's just it's wild.
Well,
I still look
thank
back.
you. Yeah.
I still look back every once in a while in the notebook that I wrote, took all the notes from the
For
very first
sure.
session that we did together, and like there are still things that are coming through now, even well over a year later, and
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah, I think it's been over a
wild.
year now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
your experience in health insurance and workers comp. So you're kind of on like the other side of things versus like the frontline facing like healthcare workers and things like that. But
For sure.
it's really interesting because I just had a conversation on the last episode with another entrepreneur who owns multiple small businesses, and her thing about, she was talking about insurance and that basically it's just crazy. Like the amount of money that you pay to have insurance in the first place, and the amount of times that it doesn't even cover what you need it for, or that you're paying more on top of it. And it's just like, you might as well just not have it, because it's like, you know, it's just, I don't, it's really like, you got to just weigh the pros and cons. But what was your experience like when you were working in that, on that side of it? So what would you say is like, was it like, because I feel like my experience like with insurance companies is like one of two things. Either as a patient, I've had to call to like complain that this wasn't covered, or why, and like, oh, the code was wrong, or this and that. Or from a provider standpoint of, we're no longer covering like this medication, and then we have to fight to get it covered. So I know that side of it, and I think like a lot of patients know that side of it, of like having to like deal with these things. But like from your end of it, like what's your perspective on like the receiving end of that?
Oh yeah. I'm like trying to sit here, like figure out, you know, how far do I go into this? Because it's a lot, you know, and I think it's crazy, because I've both had my own experience, like kind of in that respect, like you're saying, like as a patient, having a call and being like, okay, well, what is balance billing and what is this, and blah blah blah. When I first started right out of college, that job that I was doing was specifically to review EOBs and statements with doctors and with patients. And that was like literally my only job. Like I just sat in a call center environment and just got call after call after call. Sorry.
The dogs agree.
They do, apparently. Yeah, they do. Um, so you know, it just call after call after call, and everyone's, you know, very upset, as well they should be, both doctors and patients, right? And through that job, I really learned a lot from like the institutional like side of things. You know, we're no longer covering this medication, but everybody that is involved in the process didn't know that. You know, people as a patient didn't know that. The doctors that are prescribing this medication don't know that. So it's like, you know, from that side of things, the insurance company basically just like pulling the rug out from everybody and being like, well, we're not covering it anymore. I don't know what to tell you. Like, figure it out. And that was really eye-opening from that perspective. And then working within corporate insurance for workers' compensation. So I actually handled workers' compensation claims for all sorts of different types of people. And basically the way that that job was run is that I oversaw various different states. So, you know, each team at like that company, you know, oversees, like my first job was like New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And those were like the main states that I handled. And then within those states, we had like different accounts. So like one of the accounts is like the Metropolitan Opera. So if somebody got hurt at the Metropolitan Opera, we would be responsible for handling that claim from the time that we received the claim until the resolution. So let's say somebody got like their rotator cuff, you know, was torn or something like that. I would be responsible as the handler for taking in the claim, like taking the statement, trying to figure out whether or not it fit within course and scope of the actual, you know, insurance policy, because that's part of it too, is that you can be hurt at work, or you can be hurt on the job and have it not be covered. Like, you know, you're doing, maybe you're traveling in between locations, and in some states, the way that those workers' compensation laws are written, you could technically like be in like the vehicle for your job and you're going to a different job site and you get in an accident. Depending on how the rules and regulations are written for that state, it may or may not be covered. So it's like, it's the thing with workers' compensation that is absolutely insane to me is that every single state has their own rules and regulations for workers' comp. There's absolutely no like governing body over it. And in some respects, I'm like, I could see why that would be a good thing. And I also see why it's not a good thing, because,
Right.
you know, you can have maybe a claim you had, you know, 10, 15 years ago. You were in New York and that was covered, and you had basically the same thing happen, but now you're in like Alaska and it's not covered. Like it's
Right.
absolutely insane to try and explain that to people. But then also too, the way that my job worked is that my actual like customer, I guess so to speak, was the job. It was the person that, you know, you're the corporation whatever that the person that got hurt that they're working for. So technically,
Mm-hmm.
like my customer is not the person that was injured. My
Right. It's
customer
the
was the
employer.
actual employer,
Yeah.
right? So having to try and explain some of these things where like some employers, like somebody would get hurt at a job site or whatever, and they could not understand for the life of them why I was denying a claim. And the thing that frustrated me to no end was that I had to constantly feel like my, hand was tied behind my back, and all I could say to people was, I have to process claims based on the rules and regulations of this state.
Right.
That was like the phrase that we were taught. Like, if you
Mm-hmm.
ever get any issue, anybody, freaking out, losing their mind over the fact that you're not going to cover this, that's all you
Mm-hmm.
have to do.
Yeah.
So I had a lot to deal with on that aspect of things because of the actual rules and regulations and the way that workers' comp policies are written. It's basically, it's out of my hands. It's per the state regulation.
Yeah.
But then on the other side too, having to call the doctor's offices and talking with them about, hey, you can't be balance billing this patient, or you can't be, trying to get this code under here because that's not what we cover for, and all of these different types of things. And it's just, like I said, I'm gonna try really hard not to get like into my like conspiratorial brain here because I have so many things to say about healthcare in this country, and like honestly, healthcare is a broad spectrum. But I
Mm-hmm.
will end it with this being that, myself and my girlfriend Erin, we both worked for the same company. So we both saw the ins and outs of health insurance, like kind of on like an outside edge, but also too like with the experience that I've had as well. When we both left corporate, neither one of us got health insurance. So
Mm-hmm.
just for what that's worth, like I don't know if that's, it speaks a lot, but to me, I feel like that's kind of, you know, a telling situation that neither one of us have health insurance because we're like, you know
Right.
what? No, I'm just gonna take my chances.
Right. And that's like me, myself and me. I like we don't have health insurance and haven't for like her for 2 years, me for a year because
No,
like it's just like it's expensive first of all. Like if you own your
it's
own
so
business and you
expensive.
try to get it covered through even the
Mm-hmm.
state, which they claim is like
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be this cheaper version of it, like
It's so not.
it
It may be
doesn't.
cheaper like initially, like when you're
Right.
paying your premiums, but no.
Right, but like the co-pays or whatever else you're going to have to pay
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of it is insane. And like
Mm-hmm.
um I was just we were just actually having this conversation last night with my parents that like I was trying to explain to my mom that like when I worked in long-term care that um like they would change like Medicare and Medicaid change the formularies every single year as far as like
Mm-hmm.
what they're willing to cover as far as medications like and
Yep.
so we could have had a patient who was on a medication for like 5 years no problem completely covered and then all of a sudden the new year rolls out and they're like you get this form that says
Yep.
this med is no longer covered you got to switch it to
Yep.
this and then it's like you're gonna like this person's been completely stable and now I have to so
Right.
it's like I have to jump through hoops to either take the time to fight with you on the phone about it
Right.
or
Yep.
I have to trial them on a different med and make them fail so
Mm-hmm.
potentially hurt or make a patient deteriorate because of trialing a different medication. And sometimes you have to trial multiple meds in order to prove that they
Exactly.
failed in order to get them back on. And
Yep.
it makes no sense. And it's like,
Mm-mm.
and like from your standpoint of like that nobody knew all of a sudden that an insurance company no longer covers this, like what is your like what's your thoughts like why what
It's
what's
it's
what's the what's the like what's the reasoning for that like what I don't understand like the lack of like the it's just this like I don't know like this like kind of like you said like they pull out the rug but like then it's just like they kind of like try to sneak it in there without being like straightforward about
mhm,
it and like
for
what's the
sure.
rationale for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's crazy too because the thing, it's one of those things, right? You're like the time that I spent doing this particular job has opened so many like not doors, but it's like opened my eyes to the way that so many things work just through this one experience because while I was at the company, I started off, I was responsible for handling claims. And then I became a supervisor. So then I was in management. And when I was in management, oh my God, Dee, like it just that once I was in management, it was really hard for me to like try and step away from that and be like, okay, I'm totally okay with the things that this particular company does from an outward customer facing and then also like internally the way that it treats its people, the way that it treats like the people that work under them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the biggest issue that's facing these like mega insurance companies, because the company that I worked for is a massive Fortune 500 company. It's not like some small potatoes mom and pop type of place that I initially
Right.
started with, like where I ended up, like it's massive. It's global, right? It's a global insurance company. So I think the biggest issue with a lot of these companies is that they're just that. They're companies. They're at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about me that is working there on the front lines making the money for them because I'm the person that's actually like helping their operations run. They don't give a shit about the doctors that they're having to work with to try and help their patients. They don't even really give a shit about the patients that they're trying to help with these claims. Like ultimately at the end of the day, what they're the most interested in is shareholders and the people that have stake in the company. And that's it. That's all they care about. As long as all of these companies are going to be on, the Dow, as long as they're going to be like front facing, they have stock, like all of these types of things, they're never going to care about anything else but the bottom line. And I think ultimately
Right.
that's the biggest issue because something like that will happen, right? Like the formularies will come out or I don't know, like another really big one while I was there was like medical marijuana. And like, especially too, as more and more states are decriminalizing or completely legalizing marijuana and the use of it.
Hmm.
I was actually just having this conversation with my dad while he was here recently. It's insane, like the lengths that some of these like companies will go to make sure that they're not going to be on the hook for things like marijuana use or things like, hey, we know that this person is taking medical marijuana because now it's in the doctor's notes that we have a hold of. And now we're going to do X, Y, and Z on, the back end to try and make sure that we're not going to be on the hook for it or, whatever. The the biggest thing that they're concerned with, like I said, is the bottom line, the bottom dollar, and checking check boxes. And that's all they care about.
Right. Right. Um, and that's like with things like EpiPens and insulin, like with these,
Hmm.
like these are medications, like they're not like, it's not just like Tylenol. Like we're not just talking about
Right,
something that might make you feel a little bit better to
right.
make your cold go away faster. We're talking about like medications that
Life-saving medications,
determine
yeah.
whether or not you live or die.
Yeah, yeah.
And like to have these companies decide that all of a sudden we're going to make life-saving medications either completely unaffordable or just
Yep.
unavailable.
Hmm.
It like I sit here and I think about it and I'm like, I don't understand. And like, how does nobody see this and think like that's not correct? Like we
Yeah.
have taken an entire industry and just once again all we care about is the bottom line, and nobody's actually being like, but we're taking life-saving medications and making them inaccessible or unaffordable.
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
and
It's
how
hard
you fix
too.
that, I don't know. Like I don't,
Yeah.
other than like a complete overhaul,
Overhaul. Yeah.
which is
Right.
what we're here for, but like
Right.
other than that, I don't understand how you get people to like actually listen to like the consumer and be
Yeah.
like, this is not right. Like,
Right. It's not sustainable. Yeah, exactly.
no,
I
no,
think that I was sitting here trying to tell myself, don't get conspiratorial, but unfortunately,
do
a
it.
lot of this stuff kind of
Just do
it
it.
all that's kind of how it is. So,
Yeah.
the big I think the absolute most criminal aspect of this entire like situation, this entire operation, is that all insurance companies are in the pocket of big pharma. Because at the end of the day, if big pharma, let's take your insulin, example,
Hmm.
they're, they've got an insulin drug on the market and they've had it on the market for 50 years, right? Like it works, it's effective. People are
Hmm.
like so hooked on this stuff, it's not even funny, right? Because they need it.
Hmm.
It's life saving. They need to
Hmm.
have this medication. So big pharma is going to do something like get all of these people on this drug for years. And then they're going to say, hey, we now have a pill form that'll make this even better. It's this brand new, never really been tested in in the wild kind of thing. And
For more than a
we're,
minute.
4 minute exactly. And we're just going to, push this out there. But nobody's taking it because everybody knows this other one that they have been taking, maybe this injectable version or whatever, and they feel comfortable, they feel safe with it, etc. So what's the manufacturer of the big pharma going to do? They're going to pull that. They're going to pull the other one. They're going to stop making that one. And if anything, maybe they don't stop making it. They're going to force all of the insurance companies to go with the new version. So now what the insurance companies are and this is just insane to me, again, that people don't see this happening. A lot of it is like, being, ignorance is bliss kind of thing, probably. Mm-hmm. And the other part too is that, there aren't a lot of people like you, like me, like, Mia and Aaron, where, we were on a fringe or potentially right in the thick of like the front lines with this healthcare industry. And then we see something else and you can't unsee it. You can never go back to the way that it was before. And now, at least for the four of us, and there are obviously so many other people, especially after COVID, I think that was the massive awakening for a lot of people in healthcare specifically. But you have all these people that now have seen what's going on, and we're like, okay, this isn't right. But there's so many other people that still have never seen this stuff before. They have no idea that this stuff goes on. They're listening to the people that are in positions of power or authority, and they're just trusting what they're being told. But ultimately, they're being sold a lie. I mean, all you have to do, and we've talked about this so many times, you just have to follow the money. Like that's all it is. Like because all of these corporations are corporations. The problem is that we took something that was so sacred, so intimate, so innate within ourselves, the health and care of our own bodies, and we outsourced it.
Right.
We allowed it to be privatized and monetized.
Yeah, and to say too, like this, like so you have this group of people who are they're just unaware of how the system works. Like, right, like the majority of us as Americans at some point in our life have been involved in the system, whether it's receiving care or working in it in some way, shape, or form. And but there is, but even so, it's not everybody has this, like you said, this intimate knowledge of how it all works. Like it's a machine that just runs a certain way. Total and machine. But also people just don't know how to, and because of that, then they don't know how to navigate it. So like you said, you get this, you have an elderly person who gets something in the mail that says this med isn't covered. Now you have to take this and now it's going to cost you $500 a month. They're like,
exactly.
Okay. Like they don't know that like they should be calling to fight that. They don't know that like, there's ways that you can get around that, and then there's the other side of it of providers who do know a little bit more and do know how to navigate those things but don't have the time to do it. Like that's right. I don't have the time to fight 30 insurance claims in a week when I'm seeing 50 patients in an 8-hour day. Like it's just not feasible. And and so then you have like that side of it, but then where was I going with that? I completely lost my train of thought. It must have.
It's all good. It's all good. I was gonna say too. The biggest part of that I think is that these corporations, these cogs in the machine, they're relying on the fact that everyone's just gonna let that happen. Do you know how much money insurance providers make? Because people aren't going back and questioning the billing, or or even just and even that too. Just the way that they so. A lot of people don't understand that the reason why these providers, healthcare providers, are so strapped. They're so like beat down. They're so run down. They have to, have all of these people come in through the doors and actually have these appointments every day. A lot of people don't realize it's because of the insurance. If a provider is going to accept a particular form of insurance, that insurance provider is then going to demand that they see 10 people a day. Well, if you're accepting 5 or 6 different insurance providers within that office, how many other demands are they going to be making? And each one is making specific demands for all of these doctors, these nurses, all healthcare staff. And I think it's an unfortunate nature because a lot of healthcare providers get into that business because they want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, they're basically forced to not be in a position where they can. My
Right.
my mom
Right.
is a perfect example of that. She when I was a little kid, she started doing nursing, started going to classes and things like that. She was almost done, and then I can't remember what it was, but something happened. She wasn't able to continue and finish through. So then when we were a little bit older, I was already like almost graduating high school at that point or something. She decided that she was going to stop being in corporate insurance because, of course, falls far from the tree on that one. So she stepped out of corporate insurance and then said that she was going to go do what she always dreamed of doing, which was nursing. So she goes back to school probably 15, maybe 20 years after she had initially been trying to go to school. She left that program that she was in after like 6 to 8 months or so because she realized exactly like what we're talking about. The healthcare, system at this point is just that. It's a system. It is
Mm-hmm.
it is a complete mockery of what it initially started out as being, and unfortunately there are so many people that you start into that program thinking it's going to be one thing. You go through your program, you go through your nursing school, you go through everything. Maybe you've had clinicals, maybe you've had all this stuff that, kind of dip your toe in a little bit, but then you're released
Mm-hmm.
out into the world. And then you start seeing what's actually going on. And there are
Mm-hmm.
so many people that are in positions where they can't leave, right? Like there are so
Right.
many things like that are tying everybody to all of these different jobs because that's the biggest thing, right? Like if you're doing a job and you don't agree with it, then why not just leave?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like I said, it goes so far,
Right.
D. Like
Right.
it's
Well, I
just
need a
in
job in order to
everything.
live. It's just, it's
Exactly.
like,
I need to
and
be able
it's,
to pay for
mhm,
things.
right.
Not everybody
And
can
that's
just
what,
leave.
you're right. And I talk about that all the time. And like, as I've been talking about this more and more, it's forced me back into like memories that I haven't thought about in a really long time because
Yeah.
it's been 13 years since I've been out of undergrad, and now it'll be almost 10 years that I've been out of graduate school. So it's been a minute. But thinking back, it's like when you're in school, it seems like this job that you're going to get is like this like glorified wonderful thing, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be great, and I'm going to make good money, and I'm going to change lives, and I'm going to help people. And like
Yep.
when you're in school, nobody sits here and talks about like this is a system. It's like you're being taught that like this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to take care of people, and this is how you're going to pass your meds, and like you think it's all great, and then you like step foot into the real world, and like you realize there's like all of these like and there's so many layers to it, but you're like you look
So.
around and you're like, am I in the twilight zone? Like what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other facet too is like that I experienced is like I went in as an RN and was like, okay, yep, there's certain things that are fucked up. It's like this isn't right,
That's
but
part of the job.
whatever, I'm here to do my
Part of the
job.
job.
Like, right, you
Yeah.
just accept that this is just part of the job. And then you have this, then you start to get, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go back to school. And so when I have this job, it's going to be better because, like, I'm going to have a better schedule. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have more impact because now I can, like, prescribe medications and diagnose people, and I can do so much more with it. And really, it's like, no, it's actually like you just
It's
see a
almost
different,
worse, right?
it's like that you're on this side of the wall and then you go to this side
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Or it's
It's the
worse,
same
but it's
thing.
just
Yep.
depending. And it's
But now you
like,
know about it too. It's
right.
like the,
And
the veil has been lifted, so now you see it, and now you're like, oh shit.
right. And the amount of people that just still like accept it,
Hmm.
even with like COVID and everything, you've seen like now because of all that, you've had this like mass exodus of healthcare workers being like,
Hmm.
this is fucked. Like nobody knew what
This
was
is my line
happening
in the sand. I'm not
for
doing
3 years,
this.
and like
Right.
I'm out.
Right.
But it's like, where do we decide that like we just start speaking up instead of being like, oh, this is cool. And it's like, and you were
Right.
talking about, I remember what I was thinking before is like, you have these people who are not in the system and who listen to the people who are in charge, right? So you listen to these corporations who think they know what they do, and you listen to these
Yeah.
medical associations and these high level scientists. You listen to politicians who are all telling you, and you want to believe them because you think that they know best.
Right.
Yet at the end of the day, big pharma and insurance companies are in their pockets too.
Yep.
Because you can't tell me when they're up there promoting this
Right.
crazy ass drug that's actually going to kill you and not make you better, that big pharma's not like, here you go. Thank you for saying that. And it's just like,
exactly.
and it's corrupt from all angles. And like, and the other side of it too, like I just had this conversation last night with my dad about a family friend who, he was explaining to me how like she had like cluster migraines, and he had to call 911 for her to take her to the ER, and she's like in her mid 70s, and like he had said to them at the hospital, like, don't, like, it was late at night, and he was like, don't, there's no one to take care of her at home, like her daughter's not here yet, like she's not gonna be here till tomorrow, like, so please don't discharge her, because like she's not safe to go home by herself right now. And they were like, yeah, okay. And then he gets like a call at like 3 a.m. from her that she's sitting in the waiting room because they discharged her. And he's like, but I don't understand, like, what? And I'm like, yeah, but Dad, that's just how it works. Like, if an ER doesn't have a reason to keep you, if they're not treating you for anything, he's like, yeah, but your insurance will cover it. I said, yeah, but you gotta have you gotta have a reason to bill the insurance. The insurance isn't just gonna, there's no code for doesn't have anybody to take care of them at home, so they have to wait a few more hours. Like, it doesn't work that way. And there's 15 other people in the waiting room who need that one bed that's maybe available. And like, and this is a person who's heard me talk about this all the time, and he's still like, what? I don't understand. And it's just I don't, you know. And it's like, and also, you've had like your own experience with your, if you want to talk about it, like the gene mutation that you have, like your mom, like, I mean, we've talked in depthly about your mom's health history that is like extensive, and all of these things, and like getting back to a point in medicine where, one, we're doing it to actually take care of people and heal them, versus like this Band-Aid effect. And so you've had, you know, your whole family has had an experience with it all, and has gone more of like a naturopathic way with it all. But like, I mean, I think in our world it's a little bit more skewed, because I think in our world we tend to see more people who seek these more natural remedies, and want to heal themselves, and want to get to the root cause of things, and want to deal with their inner trauma and childhood, you know, traumas and things like that. But that's not like the standard. I think there's people who are becoming more open to that, and if you actually like take the time to teach them and talk to them about it, and you kind of get in their ear about it a little bit, you know, they're kind of like, oh, that's that can make me feel better. That's interesting. Like, but like, what was your experience with that? Like on the patient end of that, with something like these, you know, essentially chronic, you know, disease that is lifelong.
Yeah. So, you know, my mom, like her side of the family, so we have a gene mutation called MTHFR. Basically what that is, you know, our bodies are unable to process out toxins. So most people, you know, the whole point of the human body, right? Maintain homeostasis and make sure everything's kosher, right? So, you know, you're maybe like, for example, getting like a vaccine or something like that, where there are a lot of heavy metals, toxins, things like that are within these certain things, you know, even like not... She agrees. Sorry. I hope it's not too bad. But you know, so you have these different, you know, you know, things, like even just like food, right? So like maybe you're technically allergic to food, but like your body has basically my body has the inability to process out things that it normally should, right? So that's like kind of the big one, the big piece that can actually manifest itself as symptoms, as different symptomology. So, for example, like my grandma has lupus. She, kind of finds it as a point of pride that she was one of the very first patients that Mayo Clinic in, Miami, Florida or whatever was diagnosed with lupus. I'm like, okay, great. So, she's got that, issue, and that has actually, continued to manifest, throughout generations. So my mom has it. Technically, I have it, things like that. I'm asymptomatic for it, but that's a whole other story. So we've got that piece and that aspect. And then we have my dad, who has, basically a lot of the same issues. We know for sure that he has MTHFR as well, because while I only have one gene variation SNP, my brother has both, which means that absolutely he got it from at least one set from my dad. So for sure he also has it as well. So the chances of two people just meeting in the wild, never knowing about this and
Right.
having kids, and then ending up in this situation is wild to me. But he, his symptoms manifest as arthritic psoriasis. So he's got just really bad, psoriatic arthritis, and pretty much has my entire life essentially. So, you've got two completely uh, separate issues, health wise. But I will probably never forget going through with my mom this issue of trying to figure out what was going on, because growing up we basically lived with my mom. So I, growing up, didn't really see a lot of from my dad's perspective. I've since seen a lot more now being an adult. But with my mom, we would go to doctors, and doctors would literally look her dead in the eye and say that she's full of shit. Just, I don't know what to tell you, you're fine. Now, don't even get me started on all the labs that people run and where the actual, numbers
Mhm.
are and things like that. But, there was a point in time where she had just had surgery, and right after surgery, as I'm sure you know, the body goes through all sorts of things, right? No matter what type of surgery it is. And for her, specifically because she has MTHFR, it also affects your vitamin B stores. So she had basically like no vitamin B levels at all whatsoever. And so
Mhm.
because she didn't, she was having these symptoms where I've never seen it before in my life, but she was manic. Like she was like crazed. Her eyes were like this big, they were bloodshot. She was like super sallow and pale, just like it did not look good, and couldn't form a coherent thought. Was literally standing in the living room, like grasping onto my hands, and was like, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I need you to take me to the doctor. Like, I don't know what's going on. So we went, we took her to the doctor, and the doctor literally looked at her and said, well, I don't know what you need. I think you just need a Xanax. That was it. So obviously I'm pissed, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe like 20 or something like that. So I'm just like, like, so hopped up and so angry. And so, we're going home with her prescription in hand for fucking Xanax, that I'm like, you don't need this. Like
Right.
it doesn't feel right. Like it just doesn't feel right. And it was one of those moments, I'm sure everybody can relate to this, where just the voice in the back of your head, right? Your intuition is telling you this isn't right. Don't stop. Figure it out. So literally, I just went on a bender that night, just researching everything that I could. And just through doing that research, I found out, hey, this is highly correlated with vitamin B issue. I said, before you take the Xanax, before you actually go fill this prescription, before you do this, let's try this vitamin B and let's see if that works. And that was literally all she needed. It was just
Mhm.
liposomal vitamin B spray. That's all she did. It was like the I think B12 compound or something like that. But regardless, she took that for maybe 2 days and was completely back to normal. Like no
Mhm.
issue at all. Like it never happened. So I
Mhm.
was like, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. And already at that point too, we had kind of started kind of going the path of more naturopathic things. Um, I don't know if you've seen in stores. I mean, they're pretty big now everywhere. But Boiron, it's like a pharmaceutical, naturopathic pharmaceutical company. And
Mhm.
if you've ever seen like the oxycoxo, whatever that thing is for the flu, it's like the little pellets or whatever that you use for flu symptoms. They have ones for colds. They have all sorts of stuff now. And if you're lucky enough to live around a Wegmans or most other
Mhm.
supermarkets at this day and age, they have something like that. But they'll have like like a little display case or like a placard or something like that. And it's all of the different naturopathic like remedies that you can take for, acid reflux, heartburn, like gas, vomiting, acne, literally anything. You name it, if you have a symptom, you can find it and you can take this naturopathic remedy. Now, that whole, like I said, don't get me started on that yet because, a lot of people in other countries, especially European nations, they've been using all of this for an extremely long period of time. And the biggest issue that we have in America is the FDA and the pharmaceutical companies, because obviously we're not in a business of healthcare, we're in a business of sick care. Just like you're saying, the Band-Aid slap kind of thing. They're not interested in actually making people healthy, because as soon as they do, they're losing out on customers for life, right? So that was kind of like the first issues that we were having with this, was that we were having symptoms or we were having issues, and people just kind of kept looking at us and telling us, you're nuts. I don't know what to tell you. Like, nothing's showing up on any tests that we're running, so it must just be in your head. It's all psychosomatic. I don't know what to tell you. And kind of the final straw with all of this too is, my brother, when we were growing up, he had a lot of concussions, like a lot. He was just a rough and tumble kid, and then he played hockey, so it was like all of the bad things that you probably should not have been doing, but he did. And through his hockey career, he stopped. I think he was a sophomore in high school, and it was because his depression had gotten so bad that he was literally on suicide watch. Like, my mom was like actually making sure that he wasn't going to kill himself, and that was like huge. It was massive. Like, that was like one of the hardest things that as a family we were going through. But for him, it was even worse, because then he's being basically told by all of his physicians, by his psychiatrists, everybody, that he's nuts. Like, he has no reason to be feeling this way, so he just needs to get over it, basically. And it was like, holy shit. And that was like upstate New York. We were in Syracuse. Like, it was like that was healthcare at that time, right? Like, that was what we were receiving. It was from all sorts of different doctors all over the state, really. And it took a doctor that was down in New York City to actually be able to prescribe something that wasn't even a medication for him. They weren't even trying to, dope him up on, Zoloft or whatever, like all of these types of things. He pretty much tried every single drug that you can think of. Nothing was working. And so this doctor in New York City, he is, extremely well known for helping veterans, specifically with PTSD and all sorts of things like that. And he actually uses a very small, very light TENS unit that's like a STEM TENS unit, and you just like connect it to both your ears. It stimulates the vagus, system, nerve system, and everything like that. And through very, slow, gradual changes, like just through repeated use of this device, he was completely fine. That and some vitamins, and he was completely fine within a matter of a couple of months, when he'd been dealing with this for years. And everybody was just telling him, I don't know what to tell you, you're just going to have to be on antidepressants for the rest of your life. And he's like, this makes me feel horrible. Like, this makes me feel worse. Like, I feel like a zombie. I don't feel like myself. I don't want to do this. But yet everybody else is telling him, like, I don't know what else to tell you. This is all you can do. So it was like through continuous and repeated failures of the healthcare system that we had experienced, we just started doing more research into, okay, well, what does this mean? Or I'm having these symptoms. What does this actually mean for my body? And so kind of through having these repeated failures happen, it really empowered us as a family to take back the power from these corporations, from the doctors, from these people that were, basically in these positions of authority and power, and telling us that we were insane. So it took that for us to be like, okay, wait a minute, no. And, I give a lot of credit to my mom too, because she had been doing all of this research pretty much for, I don't even know, like 15, 20 years or something like that. Like, she's just got one of those brains. She loves research. She loves trying to find stuff out. So it's like, she found a lot of this stuff. And then as we continued to get older, it just continued to keep happening. And it was like, okay, well, let's try this. And it was just through very simple, like very, very simple dietary changes. Like, I used to have horrific cystic acne, and just through dietary changes, I changed the way that my skin looks. Granted, I was on Accutane for a little bit of time. Then I found out that it was a cancer drug, and I got off of that really quickly. I was like, I don't need to be on chemotherapy. Thank you. I'm good. I will live with my acne. I don't care.
I don't need my skin to melt off.
Right.
Like,
I'm good. Like
But
all my skin is sloughing off. I'm like, I don't understand, but okay. Anyway,
yeah. And
um,
that's the thing is like you have these like it within the system like right like we're all the majority of us are all trained like in a very similar way like right we're all reading like the same types of textbooks, we're all learning how to assess a patient the same way, we're all learning that you know this stepwise fashion of XYZ equals
yep,
this diagnosis, which is like
yep,
complete and total and as far as I'm concerned crazy bullshit, because it's like not
absolutely.
one person is made the same at
Nope.
all. You can have a set of twins, they're still different.
Yep.
So like why are we taking these like textbook one size fits all solution to try to treat human beings is beyond me. But you have these extremes of like people within the system too who are like on one end you're crazy, there's nothing wrong with you, bye,
Yep.
to the other end of well here's some Xanax, like it's like it's
Like it's
a
nothing.
candy, right?
Yep.
Like this is a controlled substance,
Yep.
a controlled substance, like it is,
Yep.
and they're just like here you go,
Here
you're
you go.
crazy.
Yeah.
And
Go on.
like and nobody's like looking around being like wait a minute, what, I just got like a, you know what I mean, like you could take that bottle of pills and go sell it on the street somewhere because
Yep.
like what
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody
It's
thinks
wild.
twice
It's wild.
about what
It's
they're doing,
insane.
whether it's one extreme
Yep.
or the other. But you
Yep.
touched on the other piece of it too, is like we're also not being taught, like it has been so lost within our society that we have the ability to go within ourselves and to truly know ourselves and do all of this really deep work and really heal a lot of the things on our, either just on our own or with the support of various types of like naturopathic remedies. And
Yep.
of course, like you said, that's not a profitable thing. So if you have a bunch of people who are like, oh, I can just heal myself, great.
Yep.
Well, then, like, you're right. Who's making any of the money? But also, like, if we were just a society that was just more aware of what we were putting in our body, what we were putting on our body. I know we've had conversations about, the food industry in this nation and how it's just like insane. And you've had experiences with just even things like even these like these companies who claim that they're more natural and don't have toxins within their supply, to find out that, well, if you read the fine print, there really are things in there. Like you had the whole like skin issue with like various soaps and stuff. And so it's like it's not just because it says it's organic or just because it says it's natural doesn't mean it's better for you than the Hot Pockets that you're getting from the freezer section. So like
Exactly.
but and so like but also people are just, I think there's so many people who are just not willing to, like, they either just like don't want to take the time to figure it out because they're lazy, or really is more of the underlying problem is nobody within the society who works a 9 to 5 actually has the time because they're just really trying to survive and be able to feed their families this terrible processed food that's the only thing that they can afford.
Right.
And they don't have the time to sit on their computer and figure out, like, what is this? Well, what's this weird ingredient? I've never heard of that. Like, oh, wait, it really is like a toxic chemical, even though it says all natural. Like, and so I just want more people to realize that, like, we are so capable as human beings to, like, really, really heal ourselves and to really, really, like, know. And it, like you said, it's that intuitive piece that you had mentioned in picking up on, of like, this isn't right, there's got to be something more. But also the intuitive piece with everything, with your complete lifestyle, of like what you eat, like just simply eating a meal and then assessing after, like, how do I actually feel after I ate that? And like we walk through life, a lot of us, of just not having any idea of what our bodies actually feel like.
Absolutely.
Or like that I just ate that pizza and now I'm bloated,
And
but
now I
I
don't
didn't
feel good.
actually connect the dots.
Yep.
And
Or we'd never realize and we just think it's normal. Like, I mean, love my dad to death, but I don't think the man's ever felt like how he's supposed to feel. So
right,
in his brain, he's like, I don't feel any different. I think it's
right,
fine. But it's like, Dad,
right,
okay.
right. Like we just expect. I think, and I think like I think we're like so fortunate to be in the generation that we're in, because I truly feel
Absolutely.
that our generation is going to really be, and whoever comes after us, because
Oh,
we're the
yeah.
ones now raising these babies of like,
Yeah, we're the Phoenix generation.
this
We
is not
start.
right. There's got
Yep.
to be something, and like, but but anywhere above our generation, our parents and beyond are just like, yeah, I'm supposed to wake up in the morning and feel like crap and like not be able to move half my body, and like I'll just go take my 6 meds and it's fine. Like they don't think about that side of it. So it's like there's this disconnect still, and it's shifting, but there's still this very large group of people who are like completely focused on like just wanting to like mask the symptoms or take the pill or do the easy thing, where now we're coming in and being like, no, like if we just do some childhood trauma healing, and if we do some generational healing and all of these other things, like we can actually clear out a lot of shit that didn't even need to be here in the first place.
Sorry, I think I lost you just right at the end there.
Oh yeah. I
Sorry.
just said that like we like so like there's we do a lot of like this healing and this generational healing that we're realizing that we can prevent so many things that didn't even need to
Absolutely.
happen
Yeah,
in the first place.
absolutely.
And like if and it's like, through the type of work that you do, it's like, and the type of work that various other practitioners do, like we're now getting back to these ancient ways of healing
Yeah.
that, and like I'm reading this book right now on I don't even know where it is. Plants of the Gods.
There
Plants
you
of the
go.
Gods. I'm getting back into the plant medicine now that I've
Amazing.
had a little, it's coming, it's all coming
Yay.
back to me. So it's feels like it's all part of it. But like
Hmm.
talking about that like these ancient cultures and these indigenous cultures, they believe, that they believe that the body is like, I'm trying to think of it, that like it's not there's not a physical reason why your body doesn't feel good or is experiencing
Right.
something. Like it is far greater than that. It is spiritual. It is beyond us
Yeah.
as to why
Energetic.
something is happening. And of course we've experienced that, like when, with just, if you've ever experienced things like energy work and stuff, like, that like, oh, I have this ache here, oh, I have this here, or whatever, and it's just like, it's just energy that's stuck in your body. It's not, you don't have arthritis, you don't have cancer, you don't have some crazy thing. It's just simply energy stuck where it shouldn't be.
Yep.
And that these ancient cultures knew that. They knew that there was not these physical reasons as to why they were sick or didn't feel well, that it was
Right.
far greater than them. And why they use these naturopathic and plant medicines to become to come closer
Hmm.
to spirit, source, God, whatever you want to refer to it as, to heal themselves. And
Yep.
that's all it took. And it's like, and we're all just sitting here like, yeah, the big man at the top in the suit is the one who's right.
Yeah, for sure. No issue
you know?
there. I see no issue.
No. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
believe
Yeah.
everything they're saying.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the thing too, that I really would like to impart for your listeners and for your audience is that it sounds terrible, right? It sounds horrible. Like the first step of being aware of everything going on is like pure panic and like, oh my God, what do I do? Like now that
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is a thing and this is like the big reveal, like this is what's actually going on, like what the hell am I supposed to do about it? And it's so easy to fall into like the despair and, numbing and suppression, because honestly, on a lot of levels, it's almost too big to handle. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
too much to handle all of this knowledge, because really what you kind of have to go through in this discovery and in this process for yourself is coming to terms with the fact that you have allowed yourself to be snowed by other people, other corporations, and other entities that only wish to do you harm. That's terrifying. It's
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so scary. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure if your listeners are at a point where maybe this is where they're at now, I really hope, if nothing else, they take away from from this podcast and from this experience and listening to you talk about this stuff, is that you have all the power here. It feels disparaging initially when you find out all this stuff, but it should hopefully quickly turn into empowerment and
Mm-hmm.
excitement in being able
Mm-hmm.
to actually take charge of everything in your life, not just your health, not just everything else that you're consuming on a daily basis, but everything from an energetic standpoint as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest things that you can do, like just kind of high level stuff to try and like help you get through this process, is firstly, start reading the ingredient labels on everything. And if there's something that's like this long and you can't pronounce it and you don't understand what it means, probably put it down and opt for another option.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for everything. Just start actually becoming aware of what's going on around you. Start doing research. The thing too
Right.
is that not only are we in like the best time for humanity ever, even though it seems so bleak right now, we really are, because we have the internet, and almost every single person has access to the internet. Now, whether or not
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be using what very little free time you have to be researching what the hell a natural fragrance is and what that means, that's here or there. But at least, at the very least, what you can do at the like very front lines is just start reading the ingredient labels on everything,
Mm-hmm.
all the way down to your food, and opt for more whole foods. I guarantee you, you do that over a month, you're going to feel night and day different, complete night and day different.
Mm-hmm.
Get a water filter. That's like
Mm-hmm.
number one, if not number two. Like, that is huge. Like, get a legitimate good water filter. There are so many on the market right now, and focus specifically on ensuring that it takes out heavy metal toxins, chlorine, and anything else that is potentially damaging to the endocrine system. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the other really big thing. Those
Mm-hmm.
two things in concert together will drastically change the way that you feel. They will drastically change the way that your energy is. And it's going to start allowing you to actually open up to the process of beginning the internal work, of beginning to actually investigate what to do in a lot of these scenarios, in a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
situations, because I remember how I felt when I first started doing this work. It seems impossible. It
Mm-hmm.
seems absolutely impossible. It
Oh, for
seems like
sure.
there's nothing you can do. Exactly. You can speak to that too.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's too much and I just can't do it. And I'm better off just, dying early and just, staying a corporate cog or whatever, that kind of thing. But those two things together are going to make it so that you are actually able to get to a point where you can start listening to your intuition, where,
Mm-hmm.
through however many years of repeated, you know, like dulling or dumbing down, the the thing to stop using toothpaste from from the over the counter toothpaste, because the amount of fluoride that's in
Mm-hmm.
toothpaste, it directly affects that pineal gland. So anything that you can do to try and bring yourself back to a more natural state is the absolute best thing that you possibly could do.
Right.
And then really just start becoming your own advocate. If you feel something, if you're starting to feel like that internal, like, there's a voice in the back of my head kind of thing, start paying attention, start listening to it,
Right.
because that's your intuition. And that's
Right.
that's something that I think through multiple generations within not just this country but the entire world, like there's been a massive operation just kind of running in the background to keep it so that we are all dumbed down. We're all completely cut off from the spiritual aspect of life, of nature, and then completely severed or eradicated the tie that we have to ourselves. And once you start doing just those very minor things, it gets you into a place where you can actually start to rebuild those connections and those relationships and uncover just kind of some of the clutter. Because ultimately the thing is too, is that they're going to tell you that you've been disconnected from all these things. You never have been. It's always been there. But how much extra shit is piled on top of you to keep it so you can't pay attention to that ever? That's the thing, that you just start chipping away piece by piece at that kind of stuff. Everything else just naturally falls into place because it's the natural state of being. Once that happens, it's all bets are off, and every single person I've ever talked to, any person that's ever done anything like that, they always come back to me, or I've always had conversations later on that they say, "Holy shit, it wasn't that hard. It seems like it's impossible initially, but by taking very small steps like that, that's all that it takes. That's it."
Right. And like and to like just to add on to that, like to question, like you said, question everything. Like even if you think like it doesn't deserve a question, just
question
like slow down and question it, and just to be
that's
like,
probably the one that needs
whether
the
or
most
not it's
questioning.
still right or wrong, but like,
That's right.
just take a second to be like, do I need this, or is this the right thing, or whatnot. And the other piece of that too is like, it's so true, because once you start to do these these micro changes that seem like a lot, it seems like a mountain, and you're like, I mean, I know there's been times where I'm like, I can't not eat gluten, I can't not eat dairy, it's just like, it's impossible. I said at one point in my life I would never not eat meat, and then I like didn't eat meat for like a year. But it's like, when you start to get little glimpses of what the other side looks like or feels like,
Yep.
it really shifts a lot in you, like, so much faster. You're like, oh, this is a mountain, and now it's like a little hill. This is like no problem. And it's just like, because once you get little glimpses of it, you're like, this is interesting. And then you want to know more. You're like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next? Now what can I do? And it's like, and somebody like too, at the last retreat we were at, somebody made this really great reference to like new like when you're doing new things that seem really, really hard, right? It's like, and she put it in the metaphor of like, it's like forming a new path in the woods. Like, you walk the same path every single day, right? It's cut, it's neat, it's easy to walk through, you know exactly where you're going. And then one day you're like, I want to go over there and try that. And the grass is higher, you got to get through some cobwebs, you got to like break down some branches, maybe move a tree out of the way or something. But then you keep doing it over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden you have a brand new path that's built. Yeah. It's a little hard at first, it might take a little bit of work, it might be a little scary, but like, then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, look at that. That was not as bad as I thought it was. Let's go try another path.
That's right.
And it's like, just like, even if it's little things, just keep like trying, stay curious, ask questions. Like, just because everybody else says it, or just because somebody who's in charge says it, doesn't mean definitely doesn't mean it's the right thing. And like, always do your own research. And like, and I think with that, like, I mean, I think, like I said, like, our generation is a generation who we are very, we're techie, we are on the internet all the time, we take advantage of what we have at our disposal now, and we're just we're just a curious group of beings who are like, no,
I don't know about that.
No.
Wait a minute.
Maybe, but I'm gonna check it out first before I say yes. Exactly. And I think, and it's just so it's just like, I encourage people all the time, like, just like, and the other thing too is like, you think that like, oh, it's just gonna be me and nobody else is gonna do it, but like, that's not true, because it's like, one person here, one person here, one person here, that adds up.
Yep.
It's just like money. $1 here, $1 is just $1. It doesn't matter, but like, that adds up.
It sure does.
So like, if you think you're like the outcast, if you think you're like the anomaly, if you think like you're the one who's weird, like, great, be the one who's weird and like try something different, and then come back and tell us how you feel.
Right.
Read your food labels, try some whole foods, and then tell us how you feel in a month.
And tell us how you feel later. Yep. Yep.
And then we can keep
Exactly.
going.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, at that point, like the path is at least cleared, and then you can start to do the really good shit. Not that,
Right.
you have to wait for that, but it
Right.
helps, it
Right.
definitely helps. And just like you're saying, like one small step leads into the next and the next and the next and the next and the next. And
Mm-hmm.
then finally you turn around and it's been almost 3 years and you talk to dead people on a daily basis and you do weird energy shit out of your hands and you resolve, your dad's arthritis in his hand after moving you and, all these things. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it seems completely unattainable until you do it.
Mm-hmm. And really, it's just returning back to what
The
we
natural state of
as
being. Yeah.
humans were meant
Yeah.
to be here doing. Like, we weren't meant to be
Exactly.
workhorses. We weren't meant to
Nope.
be putting things from a factory in our bodies. Like,
Right.
none
No.
of that.
Meant to be outside, playing in the ocean, playing in the
Yeah.
forest,
You
frolicking in the
know?
grass, playing with the birds,
Mm-hmm.
all the
Yeah.
woodland creatures.
Exactly. Talking to
Yeah.
them.
And just feeling good, and that's it. That's literally our
Mm-hmm.
only job here is to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
That's all it is.
I agree. All right. Well, thank
Amazing.
you so much for coming
Of
on and
course. Thank you
talking
for
and your
having me. This
insight
is excellent.
and your wisdom. And like I said at the beginning, y'all, if you're looking for like some bomb ass energy work, Reiki, talking to dead people, whatever you want, I think she kind of does it all. She dabbles in a little bit
I
of it
do it
all.
all.
Like,
I do it
I'll
all.
put her Instagram in the bio.
Absolutely.
You'll see, or in the description. You can find her on the internet and just take care of yourself.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
Ah,
Absolutely. Yeah. That's my big piece is take care of yourself and stay curious, question everything, as Mia always says. And yeah, if you guys are looking to get in touch with me, like Dee said, she'll put my Instagram stuff in the description. You can always feel free to reach out, send me a DM if you're curious about what I do or if I could help you. I do run like an actual program, like a coaching container and program. It's about 5 weeks, take you through basically from the ground level all the way through. So at the end, if you desire to talk to dead people or do energy work, you could be doing that too.
there you go.
And
Perfect.
then, yeah, Erin and I, I'm actually throwing a plug here. Erin and I, my girlfriend, amazing partner, we're actually going to be starting our own podcast as well. It's basically going to be
Hey.
like a question everything podcast, and it's gonna be pretty cool. So yeah,
Oh,
we'll
I
we'll
love
have that in
it.
the works. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
super excited.
I am too. I'm sure you and me are probably going to be like our first guest that we have on for sure.
Yes. Yes. You know us.
Yeah,
We're
it'll be
there.
epic.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. I love you. Thank
I
you.
love you. Thank you so much.